Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Lakshya here with us. He was my senior. We went to the same school together. But I have to say this that when um, online school was on because of the pandemic, he was the Secretary General for an NUN conference that was held in our school. And that really was, a revelation for me. I didn't know about that concept at all. After that, he kind of just, I got introduced to him by some of my friends, and they told me that he's a senior, he's also in commerce, and he's doing so well. And then cut to as we entered commerce, grade 11, he just passed out and he got admission in, I think, everyone's dream university, LSE. And that was, from that point on, I thought that if I ever have a podcast, he would be one of the first people to be there because he has so much to talk to us about. And as this podcast is focused on, students trying to drive inspiration from their seniors, who better than him? So I think I tried my best to introduce him, but I'm sure who better than Laksh himself to introduce him. So would you want to just, talk about you for a minute?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lakshya. As was mentioned, I did my schooling in Pune. Now I'm pursuing a Bachelor's of Science in Business Management from the London School of Economics. Uh, I just completed my first year. I'm back home for the summer, talking about like what I'm thinking of forward, like career-wise. I'm looking for something in investment banking, private equity, asset management, secondary advisory, and those careers. I think it's good to mention that I got a scholarship from LSE as well, because I think that could also help others who are looking for that. And yeah, looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. As you and I both mentioned that you're studying at LSE, did you always aspire to go and study abroad, or it was just something that you decided after entering junior college?
So my plan was never to go abroad from undergrad. Actually, so when I was in 10th, my plan was to pursue civil services, that is like the UPSC in India. But then I realized I want something like more fast-paced, more challenging. That's why I looked for a career in finance. And when I was in 11th and a better half of 12th as well, my plan was to go into IIM Indore for their IPM program. But when I was in 12th, it was around August. So August of 2023, I decided that, you know what, let's just try, let's just give it a shot. Let's apply abroad for colleges in US and the UK, because I saw a bunch of like people I knew go there and I was like, okay, it sounds like a good thing. So yeah, August 2023, I decided to do that. Applications go out in October, November. So having no idea how it's done with respect to entrance tests, applications, counseling, things like that. And yeah, that's how it began. And the good thing is it happened.
So, you are currently studying in England. How did you pick UK to be the country of your choice, or you had other options as well?
Definitely. So when I initially thought of pursuing management, my options were US, UK, Canada, and Singapore. Uh, Personally, I didn't feel very attracted to Singapore due to a couple reasons, so I omitted that. Canada was just too far, in my opinion. I was like, okay, I can get the same quality, if not better, education in the UK or the US. So that's how that went out of the picture. So I applied to both US and UK. US, the thing that did not sit very right with me was a lot of their colleges, they are financially need aware. That means if you require sponsorship to study, that is taken into consideration with your application. So I believe, and I really wanted a scholarship or a financial aid when I was going abroad, because it's a huge sum of money. So although I did apply to US and I did apply to UK, so those are the two countries. And UK in specific, why London, was because London is known to be a financial hub with respect to a lot of trades, a lot of deals, and a lot of obviously investment banks being headquartered there. So I thought it was a good opportunity to try that out.
Because you scored 100% scholarship, did that kind of, drive you to go and look for a university in London? Or if you think you would have had to pay a certain portion of your fees, then you would not have preferred because London is a very expensive place, I think, to live, right?
Definitely. So basically, end of the day, it's a very subjective and a very personal thing that you end up deciding. Basically, what my way of thinking was that, okay, what all am I being offered? What am I paying for it? And is it making sense from a return of investment point of view, right? And obviously, it's a bit difficult to quantify those things because a lot of it is about exposure, experience, networking, connections when you go to universities, especially outside India. And it's not that easy to quantify it. Like, it's not like, okay, just get a job. How much the job is paying you? Is it making up for your tuition? Like, that's, I think, a very like one-dimensional way to approach it. And I wouldn't advise doing that. Coming back to your question regarding if I had to pay a certain fee, would I still end up going there? The question is both a yes and a no. Yes, being yes, because now after I realize, after I've been there for a year and I'm like, okay, this is the kind of exposure I'm getting into, these are the kind of people I'm meeting, this is the kind of people I'm learning from, or these are the kind of people I'm going to work with. Now I realize it would have been a good investment. But if I had the same question back then, although like my family and all were like, oh, definitely you should go, I would be a bit hesitant.
What would be your argument against those people who believe that going to study abroad, especially for an undergrad, isn't a good choice?
So firstly, are we still just talking about like commerce and management and business fields over here, or overall?
I think we'll restrict ourselves to commerce field.
Perfect. So let's say if you talk about you want to pursue something in finance, you want to pursue something in econ, or let's say management in general, right? My approach to deciding this was the only colleges I liked in India personally was IIM Indore and SRCC. Because I was like, I don't want to pursue certain kinds of degree and I don't want to go into certain types of colleges. And then you're thinking about, okay, you pursued econ, you pursued commerce, whatever, for 3, 4 years of your life. What are you doing after that, right? So what are your employment opportunities, how employable you are, and what are the kind of firms you're working in? So for me personally, that didn't sit right because I was looking for a career in high finance, as I mentioned, private equity, asset management, investment banking, and things like that. And I was like, obviously, these sectors are very, very, very well established in the West rather than the East. Even in the East, if they are, it would mostly be, let's say, Japan, Singapore, those kind of regions are not India as of now. I'm not saying it's not going to come up, it will, but when I was deciding and when I'm having this conversation with you also, it's not that well established. So for me, my major driver was, okay, even if I study, where am I working? So that was one major criteria. Number two, it's end of the day, it's a lot about exposure. It's literally not just about what you're studying because the content, even if not the same, you develop like those instincts yourself when you grow up with things like that by doing courses and a bunch of those other things. But the exposure that you get, that is really, really unmatchable because you have no idea the kind of people you'll meet, the kind of backgrounds they're coming from. LSE specifically, it's 70 to 75% international, coming from over 100 countries. So, and when you meet those people, when you have a conversation with those people, when you work and study with those kind of people coming from such various backgrounds, I think that really opens you up, number one. And number two, makes you also ready to work in a diverse field, diverse team. Let's say when you work, obviously, you would be, the world is global. You work with teams across the globe. How do you approach that? Because even the cultural mismatch is quite a hot topic in management when we talk about global teams. So I think that is really nice. And number three, obviously, LSE being LSE, the quality of education they have, uh, it's beyond wonderful.
As you mentioned that you got first of all, impressive. That was quite a ton of information to receive. Thank you so much. But you mentioned about getting 100% scholarship. So what was the criteria for that? Was it entirely merit basis, or it was, a section of it was because you're an international student? What was the criteria?
Right. So if you go to LSE's official website, they haven't specified the criteria as such. So it's not disclosed like generally. But according to my understanding, if I have to go about it, regarding what I'm understood regarding the people who got it, the people who didn't get it, it's a mixture of both merit and need. It's not like, okay, if you need it, you'll get it. You have to qualify. You have to be eligible with respect to your academic background, your passion, and the things you want to pursue in the future. So obviously, your academic background, that comes, the merit part of it is important. At the same time, uh, it's like if you can easily pay for it, why would you even apply for it, right? I mean, it's just kind of like optimal allocation of resources if you talk about like basic economics. So I think that's how it basically works. But talking about the international part of it, obviously there are a lot more bursaries and scholarships for home students rather than international. And even if we speak about, especially a lot of these universities, how a lot of these scholarships are made, if, for example, if someone philanthropic person has decided to, let's say, fund, let's say a certain amount of that university's education or something like that. Then they'll make a scholarship in their name and be like, okay, for example, if this person was this nationality and the person had put a criteria that, okay, I'll fund 2 students coming from X country every year. So then that scholarship is only eligible for those kind of people. And it's quite common in universities, if you would see. But overall, if I speak about it in generally, scholarships can be either merit-based, need-based, or a mixture of both. The information is all available online. You should just go at the university website, see fees and funding part of it, and just see the eligibility and how they decided and what kind of amount they're giving every year to what kind of students. And then you can just apply for whatever you like. The good thing about LSE was that there was only one application. So you just fill out that common application and they consider you for everything you're eligible for and you would be eligible for. And then accordingly, they make their decision and they reach back to you.
You so much. What kind of extracurriculars did you emphasize on? Because of course, it's not just your academics that got you to LSE, right? You obviously did a lot of other stuff as well. So, what were the things that you focused on?
Okay. So I'll answer this in two buckets, US and UK. When we talk about UK, the major, let's say, thing they're looking for in applicants is their academic track record and is their passion for studying it. Now, how do you demonstrate that passion for studying it? You have done multiple projects. You have maybe published a research paper. You have interned at some particular place. Maybe you set up your own organization. You read books. You write about those books in a personal statement. So obviously, the academic track record is the major part of it. And then speaking about the passion that you have for your subject, I demonstrated that through my extracurricular activities and a couple of readings and things like that. But UK is more emphasized on, let's say, obviously academics and your passion for that particular subject and what you're looking to do after you pursue the degree. So kind of a past, present, future scenario. When I talk about US, it's a more holistic process. Like they're looking for individuals who have done a bunch of things in a bunch of places. So then, in addition to whatever all I mentioned earlier, you have your community service, you have leadership roles, you have things you do, at home, or like a lot of other things that can also be characterized into that. For example, I know a bunch of people who started a business and is doing wonderfully great. I think it's at a revenue of 5 CR per year or something like that. But how did I demonstrate it? What all I did was, I think when I was in 10th, 11th, I set up my own ME organization called Being the Change Model United Nations. And the aim of that organization was to instill the skills of diplomacy, debate, negotiations, and awareness, not just about public speaking, but about, international relations in general in the youth of India. So that was a good emphasis that I put in my application. Other than that, I played basketball at state levels. That was included. Then I did a bunch of projects regarding, let's say, so when I was in 2011, 12, so like 2021, 2023 period, there was obviously COVID had just was going away. So the implications on the economy. So I did a research on that. I visited a hospitality. I conducted a research on the industry that is the hospitality one by visiting a couple of hotels and analyzing their structure and how they're applying principles of management into that. Then I think I also visited a factory and analyzed how they're applying, if I'm not mistaken, Taylor's principles of management, in them talking about the functional part of it. So obviously it's about what you're studying and how you're implying. And then do you actually, are those activities showing that passion that you have, what it takes to pursue that degree?
A lot. And to anyone who's watching this, you mentioned about being the change MUN as organization. I was at their latest MUN this year, and it was so amazingly organized. So I can, if I do have experience that whatever he's mentioning, he's literally put his, heart and blood into it. So yeah, I'm so sorry for the background noise. I'm very, very sorry. I will edit it. You can choose not to answer this question, but currently, is even I am thinking of pursuing my undergrad in England. My parents' concern and even my concern has been the political scenario in the country, even the economic instability. So, would you say that in hindsight, do you think it was a good decision? But also, considering you're at a very good university and you're doing very well for yourself, if somebody is at maybe a public university, which is, in the QS rankings, probably hundreds or 150 at something, you think it still makes sense to go out there and put your life or your parents money at risk?
So a couple of things I'd like to mention on that. Number one, firstly, talking about the situation that you mentioned. If you see, if it's a democratic country, every country has certain situations that had come up over the years, right? If you're going for an undergrad, it's 3, 4 years. It's not like it's going to be peaceful all along, right? Obviously, it's not the case that okay, that it's just gone, there's nothing to do. That's not the case, right? If you go, the ground reality is not as much as what people would make it to be, or maybe this is the opposite, right? So obviously a lot of personal perceptions also play a huge role in that. And like all these universities, they have a lot of like obviously, because they're democratic, they have the system that if you want to protest, you can do that silently, right, without interrupting others who don't want to. So it's again according to your own will what you're participating in, what you're doing. So not commenting more on that and moving forward with respect to the second part of it, let's say if it's the ranking wise, right? So again, that brings me back to my previous point, which was return on investment. And that return on investment is very personal in nature. Firstly, what is that? What is that specific thing that you're looking for when you're going to study? Maybe it's the connections you want to form. Maybe it's a job you want to get. Maybe it's like for the experience you want to go. So it's what you're looking for is personally very subjective. That's why, hence, what you gain out of it is also subjective. So that is the part of the return part of it. And obviously, the investment part of it is what you're paying. So if you feel like the return is making sense in the investment and the ROI is positive in your opinion, then it's your decision to go, right? For me, it made sense. That's why I did go.
Thank you so much. That I'm sure would have helped a lot of people watching this. Um, what was the one major cultural shock, living in the UK for the past 1 year? And did you have any experiences of xenophobia or maybe racism or anything like that?
So when I'm speaking about the answer would differ with respect to who all you're talking to, because the location of my university and where I stay, it's like very central London. And if you see, it's like a mix of people from various backgrounds. So I did not feel any sort of like racism or like, a xenophobia in that sense. That's about number one. Maybe there are people who did, but my personal experience, I did not. That's number one. And number two, talking about cultural shocks, to be very honest with you, it was obviously it was a change and it was a huge change, but it was a change that I anticipated. So I was ready with respect to what I'm going in for and what all I can, see to what I can expect to see. So in that sense, it was not a major shock as such. But obviously, when you go to a different place, every place has its own characteristic, its own culture, its own vibe. So in that sense, obviously, there is a difference. But I wouldn't term it as a shock rather than a nice change of environment.
As is evident from the way you speak, how did you, maybe this was how it was always, but I'm guessing maybe not. How did you improve your oratory and communication skills along with boosting your confidence?
To be very honest, I always identified myself like as a people's person. And when I say that, it's like I gathered my personal energy from the surrounding and from the people I'm with. And naturally, so I always love to speak about my opinions, my thoughts on things, gather insights regarding what others are thinking, and maybe build a perspective based on that. But obviously, oratory and those skills that you mentioned, they do come through practice. So, like you have public speaking events, you have recitations, you have declamations, you have speeches, debates, bunch of those things. So I think just going out there, not being afraid regarding if what you're seeing is wrong, what is it, does it make sense? Just give it a shot. You never know what's going to work out.
How's been your experience of studying alongside working? I heard that you're pursuing an internship right now.
Sorry, could you come again?
I said, what's been your experience? How's been your experience of studying alongside working? I heard that you're pursuing an internship right now.
Sure. So I'll just give you a bit of background in that. So firstly, when you're studying towards, let's say, a career in finance and specificity, how we basically usually in London, how it works is you have a spring internship after your first year. So basically in the April of your first year, followed by a summer internship in after your second year. So that's the summer after your second year. And then which gets transferred to, like, if you succeed, obviously there's kind of conversion process at every stage. And if you succeed, that gets transferred into a job after you graduate. So when talking about a spring internships, I did one at NatWest Markets, which with respect to, let's say, private funds financing, debt capital markets, interest swaps, things like that. I also did one spring internship at Moody's CRA, which is a credit rating agency. You might have heard of it, like they rate bonds, both corporate and sovereign. And then the third was at Osborne Clark. It's a law firm that usually specializes in commercial and tech laws. So basically those insights and those internships, they either from like they vary from 1 day to 1 week. And that is like for the aim of that internship is for you to gather an insight into that industry. Following which, if you do a job, there's an interview process that gets transferred to a summer internship next year. So that was like the formal process of it. And obviously, it's a lot competitive because thousands and thousands of people applying for, let's say, 10 or 5 spots. So you can do the math. And especially England, when they have only few offices, let's say either London, Birmingham, Manchester, and at times even London, only just London. So, how it works out, it's like a huge process that you have to undertake. So even before, let's say, we go to LSE, even for a first year, we start applying for these internships already. So yeah, that's the formal part of it. Besides that, in the summer or the summer I was here after my first year, I was doing an internship with LSE in specific only. So LSE Department of Management, and I was designing this course, a part of the course rather, with respect to operations management. So that was a research assistantship, which was under one of my professors. So that's number one. Number two, I was working with this M&A group, mergers and acquisitions, and I'm still working with them, where we basically analyze M&A transactions and publish reports regarding, or let's say, their synergies, valuation models, that it can be a DCF, merger, things like that. And the other of, I was also doing a third internship simultaneously, which was with respect to wealth management. So yeah, end of the day, basically you do these things not just to like develop yourself, develop those skills, be it technical, be it soft skills, but also to build a good CV for your job applications, be it a summer, be it a grad role, be it a spring intern, whatever. And just to end it, you were saying, how do you manage both of them? So end of the day, if you see like the timetable of university, it's like LSE in specific and London. If I can say UK only altogether, usually it's like you have your lectures and then you have your classes. So if you go to both of them, you can estimate that for studying specifically on campus, like contact hours with your professors and lecturers and teachers, would be about 15 to 20 hours a week max. You can add a bit of your personal study time to it. Then you add a bit of your time for like societies, clubs, those things that go on in the universities. And then, obviously you have like talks and LSE, we have like countable number of events and speaker events by bankers, politicians, prime ministers, head of states, think tanks, things like that. So obviously those are very insightful. So you should go for them. So that's what those take up a bunch of time. And then obviously you socialize, go out with people, that takes a bunch of time. But even if you sit down and calculate, you have ample amount of time, not only to work if you want to work part-time, let's say as a teacher, tutor, barista, whatever, but also if you want to do something on the more corporate side of it, it's end of the day how you're managing your own schedule to make the most of it.
That is so impressive, and thank you for explaining it in so much of detail. Um, Now, since you mentioned that eventually, if you do well at your internship, it can get converted into a full-time job. So, do you wish to permanently take up, British citizenship and live there, or you wish to come back? You can again choose not to answer this question.
I mean, I haven't thought about it, to be very honest with you. So I really don't know. It depends on several factors, which if I go to list would be quite long, so let's not do that. But yeah.
Okay. And going back to your, university, picking up your university process, first, did you take any external help of any agency into, helping you out? And second, so, what was your criteria for like picking out a specific university? Apart from LSE, you must have had a list, right? Apart from return on investment, maybe rankings or whatever. So how did you decide that if I'm not going to IIM Indore, then this is where I have to go. Otherwise, I'm not going to UK.
Okay. So firstly, it takes a lot of research. When I say research, obviously there are several factors to consider. Number one, obviously, the place you want to study, let's say the university. Let's call it University A, for example. So you want to study at University A. Okay. What's the teaching like there? What's the course content? What's the program structure? What's the working status? Do they allow you to work? Other than that, what are the professors and all like? What are the peers like? What other extracurricular options they have aside from those studies? What job networking opportunities they have? Then if you see from where are these students usually getting a job after they complete their studies, let's say their graduation, where are they working? How's that pay like? Which industry usually prefers people from what university? So is the industry going to University A? Like, do they prefer people from there? Are there a lot of people from University A working in that industry? Then aside from that, where is it located? Is it a good, safe place? Is it nice to live? Is it a congenial atmosphere? Then obviously, uh, if it's in a particular country, then what's the conversion rate like? What kind of like outflow of cash you're looking at? I think there's a bunch of reasons to consider. You should also, I'd encourage like talk to people who are studying at those places, connect with them on LinkedIn. They'd be more than happy to help out. Even if you send 20 messages, I think you'll get responded by one because obviously a lot of us are quite busy, so it just gets missed out somewhere. So then number two, a lot of these universities, they have virtual sessions from their, admissions team. Join them, learn more about them, learn about their culture, learn about their values, learn about, processes, everything. So obviously this research is very, very, very important because if you say there are so many places to go to, end of the day, how do you shortlist? Let's say 15 or 20 will apply because end of the day, the application process is also quite long and tedious for each of them. So you don't want to apply to like 100 places and assuming you also spend a bit of money on the each application, even that could be a hefty sum. So then talking about, so usually it makes sense to apply to 10 to 15 in my opinion. Um, so obviously you want to shortlist it based on a lot of other factors.
The second question was, did you take any external help of any agency for application process?
So I did enroll in one, but throughout the process, it was not like I was leaning on them for everything.
Okay. And what factors would you, suggest to other students who wish to study abroad to like inculcate in their personal statement or SOPs? Because I think most of them are so used to taking everything from AI that right now they're having a literal, difficulty in penning down everything that they've done in their life.
Sure. So firstly, obviously, you can't ask ChatGPT to write a personal statement because the university have AI detectors and they can detect how much of it is AI written, how much of it is human written. Number two, talking about what to include. Talking about, let's say, UK in specific, as I mentioned, the personal statement, the SOP. Uh, I personally like to follow, let's say, past, present, future structure. Past, basically, what made you interested in this field or in this specific field of study? What did you do to enlighten yourself and to and to like showcase and build a good foundation base, as I mentioned earlier, like books, research papers, readings, activities, internships, setting up a foundation, whatever. So what all of the things you did, so that can depict that you have a good interest in this field, and that's a major part of it. Then you should, I think what you should, it's a good thing to do is maybe you want to go to University A again. You go to their website, you go to their course, you go to their reading list, and you would see a bunch of books and papers that they prescribe. So maybe just read a couple of them and then try to form an opinion on a particular topic and try to use that in your own personal statement. So it shows that you have done your research and you are smart enough to build that opinion. So that's the past part of it. The present part of it is again, why that university? Why do you want to study there? When I talk about UK in specifics, there's one personal statement that goes to all five universities you apply to. So obviously you can't mention one specific place's name unless you're only applying to that one particular place. So that why that university changes to, why that particular country. Just a line or two. Obviously, you're not spending a lot on that. Your major part of it is why what have you done to develop your interests and skills in that field? And obviously, it should demonstrate your passion and obviously academic track record. That also comes in the present as well as the past part of it. What's your academic track record like and what all have you done for it? And obviously, there's a future part of it, as in after pursuing the degree, what do you look forward to doing and where do you want to apply that? And what do you also want to do while you're at that university? Maybe in societies, maybe you want to join this or that and develop an interest in the, let's say, something else and pursue that in the future. So things like that.
So much. Last two questions. The first one is, what in comparison to the Indian education system, what were some advantages that you found? I mean, not, I mean, what factors did you think were better than the Indian education system, and what did you think that no, I still think that Indian education is better than the British education.
So obviously, I'd not be a very good person to compare it because I'm not obviously any good person because unless they have studied the same particular year at both the places, let's say, sixth form in UK, sixth form in India, or bachelor's in UK, bachelor's in India, yeah. So, but according to my understanding, limited understanding that I have for it, there's a bit more culture of taking that initiative, taking that lead, and being the proactive one because you have that content, you have to make sense out of it, and then you have to obviously you have professors, lecturers, teachers, teaching assistants, academic mentors, pastoral mentors to help you out, but you have to be the one to take that initiative. So I think that's one of the major gaps I find in both the places. And number two, one thing I've noticed over there is like regardless of whatever you study, if you're looking for a specific role, it's not like only if you study this you can do this particular job. Obviously, unless they have like very technical requirements that you have no knowledge about, that's a different story. And number three, I believe it's less stressful. But again, I know a lot of people who disagree with me, so it's just my very personal opinion. But other than that, obviously, I'd not be a good person to compare because I've not done the same, for example, type of study at both the places.
Okay. And last question. So first of all, I want to ask, how did you score 97% plus, if I'm not wrong, in your 12th board exams? Like, what were your strategies that you followed? And second would be, how did you top your class at LSE alongside pursuing all these internships and everything?
Okay. So talking about CBSE 12th first, uh, so obviously a different approach works for different subjects and different approach works for different people. Accounts and so I did math, like standard math. So both for accounts and math, you have to understand and then you have to practice. So that's how you go about it, because obviously there are a lot of nuances that can come into different questions. So you just want to be aware of them and you just want to be at a place where you're confident. So, when you're practicing, when you're studying for an exam, it's more important to study for that 15 minutes before the exam, where you're confident before you get the paper and you're like, yes, whatever comes, I know, and I can make sense out of it. And even if I don't know, I'm in a position that I can make something out of it, right? So accounts and math, mostly it's just practice and understanding. Understanding being a major part of it, because only if you just mug up and practice, that's not going to work for you, in my opinion. Talking about business studies, uh, I feel obviously that's a bit more of a theoretical subject, and applying that into particular instances is very important because there are so many concepts and so many theories and terms that can be used at so many places. So you want to be in a position where you truly understand that, okay, this term reflects to this term reflects to this, and so on and so forth. And obviously, business studies, if you see, especially past papers, you'd see kind of a similarity in regarding what comes up. So maybe that can help you out. And the textbook, the official textbook by CBSE for business studies, I think it's more than sufficient. For math, if I'm not mistaken, I used something called as All-in-One, if that was the name. I'm not too sure of it. I think that was for both math and accounts. And then talking about econ, half of it is again theoretical, so just understanding and memorizing that, and the other half of it is very, very logical. So again, I know I'm using the word understanding a lot, but unless you truly understand the concepts, it's not going to help you in any exam. And then English is just, just read, make sense out of it, infer, and be in a position to produce good ideas and have a good sense of creativity when you're writing the grammar part of it. And literature also, just you understand and infer the text properly. And then you can apply it in situations by like critical thinking, in a sense that you're just not writing the content but presenting your view on it as well. So that was talking about 12th boards. Talking about LSE, again, the words understanding and concept really, really matter. Because if I tell you like the number of hours I studied for a particular module, it was not at all comparing to what my peers would have did or they did actually. But I think what truly makes sense is that are you in a position that you're comfortable with the material? So that's number one. Are you in a position that you can infer whatever is being said? And number three, are you in a position that you can apply whatever is being asked for? So LSE exams in specific, and if we talk about quantitative ones, it's not like, oh, what you learn will come. It's about what you learn, you build an instinct out of it, and you build an understanding out of it, and you apply that to solve what comes in the paper. So I think that really matters. So end of the day, just, make yourself comfortable in that environment regarding like be it econ, be it stats, be it math, whatever. But just be comfortable with the material and be in a position that you can actually critically assess what's being asked and use your brain to actually apply it in a sense that can be useful.
Just a follow-up question. Did you think that whatever you studied in grade 11 and 12 here, in CBSE, do you think that benefited you at your university in any way?
Definitely. So I think so. I had an accounting module in my first year, AC 102, which was quite similar to what accounts I'd done back in India. So I think that really made it easy. Then even talking about math, I believe the standard math part of it, which had a huge bulk of calculus in it, I believe that was really good because it not only like it's not about teaching you calculus, but it's about teaching you a way to approach problems, in my opinion. And I believe that was quite helpful. And then obviously econ and BS, like they built a good base regarding, concepts and foundations, because obviously what you've taught, what you've learned already will not be repeated in the future. But it's about you knowing that base and then further developing on it with respect to like case studies or like critically thinking and solving those problems.
Thank you so much. I think that's about it. Those were all the questions that I had. You did a great job. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know I said that was the last question, but could I just say that why did you agree to do this? Apart from the fact that I was pestering you again and again, uh, any particular reason why you thought that I should sit down for this?
I mean, honestly, end of the day, when I was applying, I didn't have anybody to help me out, and I didn't know anybody personally I could seek guidance from. So end of the day, even if it just helps out one person, I'd be more than happy.
I think mission successful. It's just helped me. So I think your mission has accomplished. I think that's about it. If you wish to say something, go ahead. Otherwise, we can wrap this up.
Thank you so much. I just like to say one thing that honestly, the process of application that's quite draining and because it's quite uncertain. And it's a huge deal because when you're sitting at your home and you're applying to places miles apart and you don't know what the result is going to be, it can become a bit tedious. But end of the day, just be persistent, don't lose hope, and hope for the best. And most importantly, don't self-reject yourself for anything because you really don't know what might end up happening because I never considered and thought that I'd go to LSE. I just clicked it as one of the boxes. And I'm so happy I did that. So end of the day, just hope for the best and work for it. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
With that, we will be signing off. Thank you so much.